methods of getting a woman in bed are basically going to fall into one of these five categories. They're going to be a subcategory of one of these five general categories. There's really no method of getting a woman in bed that doesn't fall into one of these five general categories. And I've gone over these before, but I felt compelled to go over it again. Category number one is attraction, also known as looks game and sexual reputation game. This is when you're able to get women in bed because of your good looks and masculine demeanor and disposition, and or because you have a well-known reputation for satisfying your female lovers in bed. What's known as, you ever had a woman say your reputation precedes you? That could be in regards to a lot of things, but as relates to being good in bed, someone would say your reputation precedes you. In other words, that means they heard from a girlfriend of theirs that you know how to lay down the pipe in bed. The other two ways, that's simply called attraction. That's generally the easiest pussy you're gonna get. When you get pussy because of attraction, that means you don't have to use no verbal game with a woman. You don't have to spend no money on a woman. You don't have to wine and dine a woman. You don't have to be overly physically aggressive with a woman. Basically, everything below number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, you don't have to rely on none of it. You don't have to rely on drugs and alcohol. When you get pussy because of attraction, that's going to be literally probably the quickest and easiest pussy you'll get. The only catch is you got to be a really good looking motherfucker to get pussy that way. Either in terms of your face, your physique, or a combination of both. Either in terms of your face, your physique, or a combination of both. You got to be an exceptionally, so if you overweight right now, you got to eat right and exercise and make sure you got a physique that's in top notch. I know my fellow dating coach, Ron Wills, he puts a lot of emphasis on body game, getting your physique right, particularly if your man is 35 years of age or older. Yeah, Ron Wills, I'll give him a shout out. He puts a lot of emphasis on keeping your physique in shape, particularly if you're a man that's 35 years of age or older. But yeah, that's attraction game, looks game. Yeah, again, all the categories listed below, you don't need none of that if you can get a woman in bed just based on attraction. Reciprocators will give you, the main women you're going to get in bed because of attraction is reciprocators. That's the main women you're going to get in bed because of attraction, is reciprocators. And then another category, I'm going to skip direct verbal game, which is my specialty. I'll come back to that in a second. Another category is simply indirect verbal game, which involves dishonest behavior, disingenuous and misleading behavior, and manipulative behavior. Yeah. When you use indirect verbal game, that means you're getting women in bed because of your ability to consistently give women the blatant misimpression, or at minimum, the vague and ambiguous misimpression that you are interested in developing and maintaining a long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous romantic relationship with them. In other words, when you use an indirect verbal game, you never ever make it straightforwardly clear to a woman that your primary interest is in indulging in one or more episodes of nothing more than short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. At minimum, you keep things very vague and ambiguous. You don't make it clear if you want relationship sex or non-relationship sex, if you want long-term sex or short-term sex, if you want monogamous sex or non-monogamous sex. You never clarify to women what type of sex you want from them. At minimum, you keep things vague and ambiguous. At maximum, you just flat out lie to women. You flat out tell them that you're in love with them, that you want to be their next boyfriend or future husband. Yeah, you tell them blatant lies. That's indirect verbal game. And see, again, one of my beefs with a lot of guys, there's a lot of guys that are in category number 3 that will try to market themselves, that try to market themselves as being in category number 2. And that like chaps my hide, man. Like, generally, man, I'll be honest with you, I don't really have a problem with guys who promote indirect verbal game and they're open and honest about the fact that they promote indirect verbal game. I'll give you one example. And I've criticized this guy a lot, but I'm gonna give him some respect. And that's AMS. Yeah, AMS, man. When AMS first became a dating coach in spring of 2018, I have a lot of criticisms for AMS. But if I had to give him 1 ounce of one compliment, he never tried to pretend like he was direct. He was indirect, and he marketed himself as being indirect. And there's some other conventional PUAs and dating coaches who have done that. Even though I philosophically disagree with indirect verbal game, I respect guys who are who are straightforward about the fact that they are about indirect game. But then you have other guys like those European PUAs I was mentioning earlier in the live stream. You have a lot of guys, again, who are in category number 3 that try to act like they're in category number 2. And they're not. But anyway, the 4th category would be monetary compensation and materialistic gifts, aka transactional sex. We've been talking about that most of the live stream. Some guys, they have no problem indulging in tricking and or whining and dining. Tricking and or whining and dining. You know? Like again, some guys feel like tricking is more time efficient. I disagree with that. But yeah, there's some guys that are just into one of those two, if not a combination of both. They into tricking. Yeah, but anytime you're getting women in bed because you're willing to offer women cash money in exchange for their short-term non-monogamous sexual companionship. Also, you're willing to offer them expensive material possessions as gifts, or willing to offer them employment or job promotions in exchange for their short-term and or non-monogamous sexual companionship. Some guys don't mind spending money. This is about the most despicable category of the 5. This is the most despicable. Now, I'm not a fan of category number 3 at all. But if there's one category worse than category number 3, it's category number 5, man. I got to be honest, man. Going back to that guy, Steve Jobber. If you look at a couple of his videos, man, he exhibited behavior that either was representative of physical coercion or at minimum, it bordered on being physical coercion. He either was guilty of physical coercion or he was on the borderline of being guilty. Man, I watched at least 2 videos where he literally like forced himself on some women, man. You can't get away with that in the United States. You might be able to get away with that in other countries, but here in the United States, I'm guarantee you, in the Me Too era, if you physically impose yourself on a woman, you're going to get charged with date rape. Same with drugs and alcohol. Now, see, I've said this a million times. See, in the mid to late 60s, 70s, and the first 2/3 of the 80s, you can get away with giving women drugs and alcohol and then having sex with them afterwards. You can get away with that. It was considered unethical, but it wasn't considered illegal. It was considered unethical, but it wasn't considered illegal. But starting with as early as 1988 and no later than around 92, 93, giving women drugs and alcohol and then having sex with them immediately afterwards, man, that's grounds for a date rape charge, man. Women will charge you with date rape. If you didn't know that before today, you know that now. Women will charge you have grounds to charge you. Yeah, if you get a woman high or get a woman drunk or physically impose yourself on a woman, any one of those 3 things, you're setting yourself up for a date rape charge. You're setting yourself up for a date rape charge, man. And then finally, of course, out of these 5, my number 1 area of specialty is number 2, direct verbal game. Really, I would say I combine category number 1 with category number 2. Like when I do one-on-one coaching, I combine both. I combine category number 1 with category number 2. But generally, my main area of expertise is category number 2, direct verbal game. Getting women in bed because of your advanced social skills, and more specifically, because of verbally bold, straightforward honesty combined with exceptional verbal seduction skills and kinky, erotic, dirty talk talents. I just mentioned the credibility for me having area that, man. I've had women, close to 1,000 women, pay me for phone sex, man. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to direct verbal game, verbal seduction, and erotic dirty talk. That's why my nickname is the king of verbal seduction and kinky, erotic dirty talk. I've had that nickname since the late 90s. But yeah, man. So every PUA or dating coach is going to be emphasizing at least one of these five, and in some cases, a combination of two of these five. Like there's some guys who are PUAs and dating coaches. Most of their advice is just simply on making yourself more physically attractive to women, or being better in bed with women. Being better in bed with women. Yeah, being better looking and or being better in bed. That relates to my scale. Remember I had my scale of the 5-star lover. Yeah. Yeah, everybody emphasizes one or more of these, man. So yeah, you got some PUS dating coaches that primary is what they call looks maxing. I'm the premier dating coach in category number 2. Most people call me the GOAT in respect to category number 2. And I'm bold enough to call myself the GOAT. Not only do supporters and followers of mine and clients of mine call me the GOAT in that area, I'll be honest, I'm cocky enough and bold enough to call myself. I'm the GOAT in category number 2. I'm the GOAT. That's why I've had the nickname the Godfather of direct verbal game, advice, and wisdom since 2010. That's been and all these nicknames again are not nicknames I gave myself. Other people, Sasha Day gave me that nickname, the Godfather of direct verbal game, advice, and wisdom. But yeah, that's my specialty is category number 2. There's a lot of conventional PUAs and indirect verbal game dating coaches that promote category number. Now, I'll be honest, man. This is the most profitable category. I say out of 5 categories, the number one PUAs and dating coaches that typically make the most money is the indirect verbal game dating coaches. And the main reason why is because a lot of guys are always going to be attracted to a method that they feel will minimize their instances of being harshly or abruptly rejected. Harshly or abruptly rejected. So I would say, generally speaking, out of 5 categories of dating advisors who are in category number 3 are typically, there might be exceptions, but typically they're going to make the most money. They're going to make the most money on a year-to-year basis. They're going to make the most money. Because most guys are scared of abrupt or harsh rejection, which I was talking about when I showed this. Category number 1. Men who have a profound fear of being abruptly and or harshly rejected. That's why men gravitate towards indirect verbal game. Because most men are scared. Most men are scared of abrupt or harsh rejection. But that's the guys who typically, again, there's exceptions, but typically those are the guys who make the most money. I don't think you have dating coaches who emphasize money game, transactional. I mean, what do you need a coach for? I mean, seriously, if you want advice related, you don't really need advice related to category number 4. That's something you either got the financial resources to do or you don't. You don't need like a PUA or a coach for category number 4. Now, you would think there's never been a coach in this category. You would think, given that it's so despicable and illegal and unethical, you would think, but there actually has been at least a handful of guys who have written books about being physically aggressive, physically forceful, or using drugs and alcohol to get women in bed. A couple of those guys got banned from a number of countries. But yeah, there actually has been at least a handful of guys who emphasize giving guys advice in category number 5. Yeah. And that's why in most cities and countries now, that type of behavior is considered date rape. It's illegal now. It used to be just unethical. Now it's illegal. Like being physically forceful back in the day, that was just considered unethical. It wasn't considered illegal. Same with giving women drugs and alcohol. That was considered unethical, but it wasn't considered illegal. Now all that shit's illegal, man. And I don't know about every country, but in most countries, definitely here in the United States. Yeah, physical aggression, physical force, and drugs and alcohol, man. That's an automatic date rape charge, man. That's an automatic date rape charge. But yeah, my specialty again is direct verbal game. Yep, again. I don't know if I can say with conviction that category 5 is illegal in all countries, but in most countries it is. Yeah. Now again, in the mid to late 60s, 70s, most of the 80s, you actually could get away with those three things. It was considered unethical, but it wasn't illegal. You could get away with, like, say, grabbing a woman's butt at a bar or nightclub, or getting a woman drunk and then having sex with her, or giving her some marijuana or some cocaine and having sex with her. I mean, there was a time when that was just unethical, but it wasn't illegal. But starting with the late 80s, early to mid 90s, that's when it became illegal. That shit's illegal now. And until next time, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.